Hey guys, here we are. This is Long Haul Larry. We're sitting in Big Blue. We just got our oil change, got a PM done. What do you think about this guy out here draining all his coolant? There's a drain right underneath this truck. I don't know. Antifreeze is not meant for dumping into the drain and going into the environment, buddy. But whatever. We are getting going here. And we actually have like 11 hours and off duty and everything, so we got a complete reset of our hours. Being here, we got the oil change and all that stuff. I'm going to try to do a couple different things here. I got a view is going. I got one over here. I got one back here. And I got one out the front window. And I'm also trying to record Aaron, my Overdrive 7 Pro GPS. So here we go. It's going to show the navigation. I put in the address I'm going to. It's the food bank of Oklahoma City. And there we go. It's telling us that we have 444 miles. We should arrive there at 10:13 p.m. today. And let's get it rolling. We'll see if I can make all of this work. It's actually hooked up to this device here. I believe it's called a trombone game recorder or something like that. And this is John's, and he borrowed it to me to try, see if this would work out. He said he never really was able to figure it out, so he went out and bought himself a $800 deal or whatever it was. But he said, I don't know, maybe you can figure it out. So we're going to give it a try. We're trying to record off the screen right now. Ooh, big pothole. I actually forgot to kick over. There we go. Off like a herd of turtles. Made a boo-boo there. I almost went down the frontage road. Quite sure how the camera behind me is going to work. I don't know how the stabilization is in this. It's actually a Canon camcorder, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going to be. But we can only try different things, right? Right. So we are rolling out of here. Our Big Blue temperature gauge is showing us at 101. We'll see if that comes down at all when we get some air past my little sensor. It was 102, it dropped to 101. I have no idea what that was. People have asked me what I keep doing down here and stuff. The cruise control is actually down here on the dash, and this truck had a password in the computer system when I first got into it. I think we're just gonna stay over here. Actually, this white car is not quite going the speed limit. It had a password in the computer system, and the boss is trying to turn it all up and everything, and he had the computer hooked to it and was having an issue with it, and he wasn't able to turn it completely up to the 70 miles an hour that he usually does. So what he had to do is, when he used the gas pedal, he could get it to go 65, but then he was able to override the cruise control, and he got the cruise control so that I could bump it up to the 70 miles an hour in the cruise. So that's why you see me sometimes. I mean, when John was in the truck, it was hilarious. It was bothering him. It was all bothering him the way it's set up. It doesn't bother me too much. I've gotten quite used to it, and it works out pretty well. And the thing is when I'm in 65 mile an hour speed limits, it actually works well because I don't even have the cruise on, and I just hold the pedal to the floor, and it does my 65 miles an hour. But when John was in the truck, I don't know if you guys saw those videos or not, but he would be over here going. It's like, John, just one click per mile, it will do it. He's like, I want it now. I want it now. He's just clicking it. It's like, settle down there, John. So this is my first test on recording Aaron. And if you can see it, you're going to see I'm a spaceship. I was messing around in the menu. And everybody calls me Leadfoot Larry, and passing people, left lane Larry, and all this stuff. Well, you got to pick, what kind of character you wanted to be: a truck, a car, a bus, all kinds of different things. And one of them was a spaceship. And I'm like, I'm a spaceship. So there you go. We are actually going to one of the subscribers. I tried to pronounce her name in the last video, or his name. I don't even remember what name it was. Wasn't sure quite on that one, but made a suggestion about these headlamps that since I'm going across 44, there's a place called the Mafia Chrome Shop in Joplin, Missouri here. So we're actually going to go there. Well, it is showing that I should arrive there at 6:11 p.m. Tells me it's 3 hours till I get there to the Chrome Shop. Hopefully they're still open. Because I stopped at that Chrome Shop up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I was not very impressed with those guys. I don't know, maybe I just got a bad vibe, but I just was not impressed with those guys. So, I don't know. I just didn't really like the place, to tell you the truth. And you guys know me. I gotta say things as I mean them. you have a little hard time keeping things like that in. So I guess as we're running across the country here, I got all these views going and everything. Let's tell a story. I just want to say that any story that I tell has, what do they call that? I can't think of what it's called at the moment. My mind isn't working. It's, where it's been so many years that you can't be prosecuted for it. I can't think of it at the top of my head now. But I'll tell you some stuff that from Swift. And guys, remember, I was very young. So we did, you know, and it was a different time back then. It was, you know, I was running out there and had a buddy with me, you know, we were running around with once in a while, and me and him would joke around and mess around with stuff. So, I need my Jake. And so we would, you know, kind of goof off a little bit. Yeah, some of this stuff was probably a little stupid, not the safest and everything. But we all got to learn somewhere. Let's see, where do I want to start with this? I'll tell you about my first day going solo. That was a good day. That was a pretty fun day, let's put it that way. I went through the whole training procedure with Swift Transportation. And like I've said in my other video, I actually think that Swift has a very top-notch training program. I know everybody likes to pick on Swift and everything else. It's fine. And I've had a couple comments. Oh, I saw a Swift truck. I was gonna make a comment and stuff, but then I remembered, and I'm like, you don't have to play. You know, you don't have to not step on my toes or something. I don't take things personal. You can make your Swift jokes. It's all fine. But I think they have a very good program. If the driver takes the time to actually listen and take in the training and everything, it's a very good program. I went through the whole training program, came back, took my road test. Me and my buddy, we ran through the program exactly the same times. We did all the tests at the same time and everything. And we got back there, and he took the first driving test, and he passed it. And then the guy was like, "Oh, okay, and I'll take this paper upstairs, and they'll get you a truck assigned." So I went up. So he went up, and I went and took my driving test. And I came back, and I passed my test. And he's like, "Oh, okay, here's your paperwork. Take it upstairs, you know, and they'll give you a truck." Well, by the time I got up there, my buddy got the last truck. And they're like, "We don't have a truck for you." And I'm like, "What?" And they did a bunch checking around, and they ended up finding a truck that was available, and it was in Minneapolis. So then they said to my buddy, they said, "How about if we give you a load going over to Minneapolis, and you take Larry with you and take him to his new truck?" And he was like, "Whatever." So they put the load on him and threw all my stuff, his stuff in his truck, and we took off and went and picked up the load. We ran over there, and they sent us, you know, messages, you know, the truck is going to be sitting in this yard, this address. It's just kind of a gravel yard in the middle of a bunch of buildings. The truck was left there. It may not be in the best of shape. We don't really know what's up with it. The keys are supposed to be on the dipstick. If they're not, get a hold of Night Dispatch, and they'll call a locksmith out there, and we'll get you in a truck. So we ran over there and showed up, and it was, I don't remember the year of the truck, but it was an old Freightliner Classic. And it was old. It was a piece of junk. I mean, just scrape marks and chunks of fiberglass missing off the hood, and it was really bad. The windshield was just shattered on the passenger side. It was just spider webs all over the place. And I got there and looked it over. The keys were there. I found the keys, fired it up. It fired up and ran. I sent a message in. I said, I'm in this truck. I said, but I'm telling you right now, this truck's in bad shape. And they got back to me and they said, is it drivable? I said, it's drivable, it's running. I said, but the windshield is shattered. And I says, you know, what do you want me to do here? And they said, well, we have no place over there, especially in the middle of the night, to get this taken care of, which I found was hard to believe. And they said, why don't you, they said, if you want to do it, basically just bobtail and drive it back to Appleton to your terminal. Be there tomorrow morning and we'll get it put in the shop and have everything fixed up. I was young, whatever. Middle of the night, scales be closed. I took off. I ran, I got past the scales, everything was closed. I ran it on over to Appleton, got in there, went to sleep for a few hours. Got up first thing in the morning, went up there, talked to my driver manager. I think this truck's gonna cut me off. And told him, I said, man, this truck is bad. It had no mattress in it, nothing. And I slept, when I got over there, I just laid on the wood and went to sleep. And I told him everything. He's like, we'll get it all fixed up. We'll get it all fixed up. It's the only truck we got available. I'm like, no problem. That's one suggestion I can make for a new driver thinking about getting into truck driving. Don't be particular. Sometimes things are going to happen that, you know, you're not going to like. It's not that you shouldn't, like, make a fuss or stand up for yourself or something. But a lot of times it's like, you know, in truck driving, you have to put in your time. Truck driving is a very experienced line of work. Hey, Mr. Flatbed. Oh, now you got smoke going out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about cutting off Big Blue here. But, well, I decided another rock hit this window. But, sometimes you just gotta put up with some bad things and just grin and bear it and put in your time. And once you put in some time and showed the company, hey, I'm here to work. I'm not here to be a little whiner or nothing else. I'm here to do a job. Then the company will start treating you better and everything else. It's just experience. That's all it is. I don't know if I should get behind this flatbed or not. He looks like he's going a little bit slower. In fact, let's just pass him. I don't feel like driving right up his butt for however many miles. But, so I took it over there and they pulled it in the shop and he went through it. They did a couple little patch jobs on some of the broken fiberglass parts. But, excuse me, something just got popped in my throat like I swallowed a fly. Put a new windshield in it, you know, did a PM on it, just did best they could. They put a new mattress in it. And they gave my truck back and I went out there and looked at it and they're like, you know, let's write everything down that you can find. And so the mechanic went over with me. Well, now the flatbed's giving him more gas. He's got smoke pouring out. I'm not gonna let this truck pass me. So he, you know, he went through it with me and we wrote up a list and everything else. And did all that. And they were like, okay, here, you know, here's the load for you. And it was that afternoon. And I had been up, I only got a couple hours sleep and then been up all day long while my truck was in the shop. Okay, Mr. Flatbed, I'm telling you right now, if you slow down, I'm going to jump right back out there, drive next to you.
I was like, okay. And I said, well, I'm pretty tired. I says, do I like have the time that I can pick up the load? I says, I'll run it down past like Chicago. Once I get past Chicago, I'll go to sleep. And they said, yeah, you're good to go. Plenty of time. I said, okay. So I went and picked up the load, took off, ran it down to Chicago, ran through Chicago at night, got to the other side, and I pulled into a little truck stop. It's not a little one, but it's a Pilot at Gary, Indiana. And if you're a truck driver and you've been through that area, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of times I'll mention Pilot truck stops that I'm catching a guy again. I'll mention Pilot truck stops and I'll say, you know, hey, I really don't like how they set up their parking and all this other stuff. They have a terrible design to them. And that one is worse. I felt that sneeze coming on. Their parking lot has like little fingers going off different directions. And you go down there and there could be double parking, but then on the end of those little fingers, they have just a single row of parking on a couple of them. And when you go down and there's no parking spot, there's actually not enough room to do a full turnaround and get back out of there. And if you do, your trailer's going to swing, you're going to jackknife everything, and the tail of your trailer is going to swing over and it's going to hit somebody. There's just not enough room there. And I came down there, and I went down one of those, and there was some open spots, and there was actually two open spots right next to each other. Statute of limitations. I've been thinking of that the whole time, trying to remember that. Everything I say has a statute of limitations, just remember. But I went down there and there was two parking spots that were open next to each other. And I went up and I pulled up and I backed into one and I left the open one on my left side. And what I did is I pulled my tandem pin and I slid my tandems all the way up so that I could put my nose back further than the guy next to me. And I just looked at it and I thought, this is a tight spot. I don't know. I don't want to get hit. So I did that. I was able to back up a little further than the guy next to me. And I crawled in the truck. I was tired. I crawled in there. I went to sleep. About an hour later, I hear like crunching noises and then the truck's starting to move. I jump up, standing there in my underoos, and I look out and there's a trailer backing in, and the guy was hitting my fender, and he just started hitting my mirror and pushing my mirror in. And I quick reached up and I grabbed my horn and blew my horn, and the guy stopped, and I quick threw on my pants and threw on a shirt and everything and slipped my boots on, and he pulled up a couple feet, and I got out and I walked out there, and it was an older guy. At the time he was an older guy to me. I think he was probably 50s, something like that. And he was like, "Oh, did I hit you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." We went back and he kind of busted a fiberglass on one of my fenders up in the front, and the mirror was just pushed in, but it was okay. You could grab it and pull it back. He didn't wreck anything. He put a big scratch on the outside of the mirror and the fiberglass, and he's like, "Man." And I was like, this isn't that bad. I says, look at the rest of the truck. It's a piece of junk. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I just went owner operator, and he goes, man, I just got my insurance. He goes, this is gonna hurt. And I said, I'll tell you what, buddy. I said, I just got this truck out of the shop. They just gave it to me last night. And I said, it's all busted up, junk cracks and everything all over the place. I said, let's take some pictures of it. Why don't you give me your information? And I said, if I pull into next time I pull into the yard, if nobody says nothing, I'll just say forget it. It's got so many dings all around and everything. I don't think anybody's gonna notice it. And I said, if that's the case, I'll just throw your name away. How's that sound? And he kind of looked at me and he's like, how much? And I said, what do you mean how much? He goes, well, I'll give you some cash. I said, no. I said, it's not about that, dude. I said, I get it, you know. And I said, mistakes happen. And I said, I really don't think there's going to be an issue here. I said, why would, you know, they're going to charge you a whole bunch of money for a new hood and everything else. And I really don't see all that with all the damage it already has on it, you know. And I said, it'll be all right. So I said, would you like me to help you back in? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. It's really tight here. And right across from our parking spots was a curb, and then it went up a grass hill. And this guy would pull up, and he would start the back end. I was telling him, I'm like, turn the wheels this, you know, do this. And the guy was sitting there, and he wasn't listening to me. He was doing the opposite of what I was telling him. And that's why I don't like directing people. Because a lot of times you're telling them, turn this way, and they turn the opposite way, and it's like, you know, listen to me. I'm your eyes out here. You need to listen. But he just wasn't. And he kept having issues, kept having to stop him. He pulled up, I mean, I bet you 6 to 8 times. He kept pulling up, trying to get it in there. And finally, I stopped him, and I walked up to him, and I said, listen, I said, you need to pitch like this, and then I'll tell you, and then you can turn and get your tractor in front. And I think the guy was getting a little frustrated. And he goes, you wanted us back it in? And I said, sure. And the guy goes, I think it kind of shocked him. I think he was being kind of smart alecky. And he was like, he just kind of looked at me, and he was like, okay. And he popped his brake, and he got out of his truck. I was like, all right. And I got up in his truck. His whole truck was just chrome. I mean, it was just a beautiful truck. He owned it. I mean, the truck was just decked out. Beautiful truck. Got in there, kind of looked around for a second. And I looked at the situation. And I said, dude, I says, would you mind if I jump this curb up here? And he goes, yeah, I don't think it'll hit the fairings or not. And I said, no, I don't think it will. I said, just watch it when I come up on the curb. If it starts to get close to the fairings, and stop me. And he was like, okay. And I pulled up a little bit, and I just bounced it up over the curb. And I looked at him. He's like, yeah, you're good. And so I pulled up on the grass just maybe 2 or 3 feet to kind of get the pitch, the angle I wanted. Turned the wheels and just backed right in there in one shot. And he was sitting out there, and he was all going to direct me, and I just kind of backed right past him, and he just kind of looked there. And he ran around the other side. I was looking at my truck and everything, and I backed it in there for him and popped the brake, and I got out. And he looked at me, and he goes, wow. He goes, you can really back up good. He goes, how long you been driving? I looked at him, and I said, well, not quite a day. And he stood there, and he looked at me, and he goes, what? And I said, yeah, I just got issued this truck. Today's my first day. And I said, I just got issued this truck up in Appleton, and I picked up a load, and I drove down here and parked, and that's when we met. And he goes, wow. And he goes, did you go to school or something? I said, yeah, I went to Fox Valley Tech. And he goes, man, they must have a good program, because man, you can back up a truck. And I said, yeah. I said, they do have a good one. And I said, I went through all the whole training process with Swift. I said, you know, that was a long process. I said, that was 8 weeks. And he's like, well, he goes, you got a handle on it, man. He goes, you're going to do good. And I was like, well, cool, thanks. And so I'm going to go back to sleep. And I said, I'll be in the yard the next day or two. And I said, I'll tell you what, I got your phone number. I'll call you, and I'll let you know. Hey, they said that nobody noticed it, so we're good. It's like, wow, I sure would appreciate that. And I said, don't worry about it. So I go to sleep. I'm sleeping. It's like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I wake up. I'm laying back there in the bunk. I wake up, and the whole truck is just shaking all over the place. And I could hear people blowing their horns and everything else. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And so I get up, and this time I knew somebody was hitting me. And I was just really over it. I didn't jump up real fast. I just kind of got up. I'm standing there in my underoos again. And I pulled open the curtain, and right in my front windshield it said, U.S. Express. Here a U.S. Express truck came in there, and it wasn't big enough area for him to do a complete turnaround. And he tried it anyway. So when he tried it, the rear end of his trailer swung out, and it just hit just perfectly. And his bumper went past my truck bumper and went right into the engine. And the truck and the trailer hooked together. The two bumpers were locked. And this guy was in his truck, and I mean, my truck was just jerking around like a foot or two, and just all over the place. And this guy's just run, he's pulling on it. He knew he hit me. He knew he smashed into me and stuff. And he was trying to get away. He was trying to leave. And I'm just hanging on inside the truck, and people are blowing their horns at him and everything else. And I reached out, I grabbed my pants, and people were outside. They were starting yelling at him and everything else. And he was trying to get away. And I came walking up to the door, and he was sitting there, and I knocked on his door, and he looked down at me. You can see he had just a defeated look on his face. He rolled down his window, and I said, "Are we done yet?" He was like, "Oh." And he got out the truck, and we went back there and everything. And we looked at the situation. My whole hood was laying off the truck. It was on the ground. I couldn't believe it, but one of the radiator hoses came off, so there was antifreeze all over the place. But it didn't break anything. It just popped the hose off, and the radiator was okay. And there was a bunch of people out there, and we were all looking at it and everything. And I said, okay, well, the first thing we got to do is get you unhooked. And he got in his truck, and I'm sitting up there, and I'm like, turn the wheels like this, back up, pull forward, and I was trying to get his trailer to pitch back over like this. And he just was not listening to me. And finally, the guy that I helped earlier, the guy who was parked next to me, he was out there too. And he yelled at the guy, he said, "Just let him in your truck." He said, "This guy can back up. Just let him in your truck, he'll get unhooked." The guy looked at me and he got out. I jumped up in his truck and I pitched it and backed it. And there were people back there and they're like, "You're unhooked, you're unhooked." And so I pulled up a little bit and got it straightened. I kept going back and forth and got it straightened out with all the other trucks, and then I backed it up. His trailer wasn't too damaged. It did do some crinkling on the exterior, but it was okay. I took pictures, got all the information, called up Swift, and they said, "Hey, we got a yard actually just a couple miles away from there. Do you think you could drive it there?" I have no hood. I'm like, "Well, I could try." And this was like 2 in the morning. So there was probably half a dozen truck drivers out there looking at the situation. And when they told me to try and drive it there, everybody was like, "No way, you're not going to be able to drive that thing." I went into a truck stop and I bought a bunch of rolls of duct tape. And I bought some rope and bungee cords and stuff like this. Came out there, and with other people's help, we picked up a bunch of big chunks. Like half of the hood, this side of the half, was all intact. It was just laying on the ground. So we put that piece on there. I put the radiator hose back on, and I had a jug of antifreeze, and I dumped that in, and the guy next to me had a jug or two, and we dumped that in, and then we went up to the fueling station, and we filled all our jugs with water, and we just filled the whole thing full of water. I figured, only got a couple miles, so it'll be fine. They'll have to fix everything, and they'll flush it and all that stuff. So, did all that, and then we took all the big chunks that were left, and we put it together. It was like a puzzle. And we put it all on there, and we took duct tape, and we taped the pieces together the best we could. And then we took the rope, and we wrapped the whole truck around with rope. It was the funniest thing. And everybody was laughing, taking pictures of it and everything else. Well, my whole headlight assembly over on that side was completely smashed, and the other side actually came out of the hood. The whole headlight assembly broke out, and it was just hanging by the wires, but it still had one bulb that worked. And so we took that headlight assembly and we put it on the hood sideways, and we used duct tape, and we taped the whole thing up to the hood sideways. And I said, "That'll get me there." And the guy that hit me the first time, he, as I was getting ready to go, he walked up to me and he said, "So I guess we don't have to worry about my little accident, huh?" I started laughing. I said, "No, dude, you are good to go, man." And I walked in the truck and I grabbed a piece of paper that had his name and everything on it, and I gave it back to him. And he was laughing. It was just crazy because my truck was further back than both the trucks next to me, and I got hit twice my first night. But I drove on over to Swift, to the terminal, and drove over there, and I came pulling in the gate, and there was a couple Swift drivers sitting out in the front. They saw me pulling in, everybody just stopped talking, and everybody just turned their head and looked at me. It was a pretty good one. But I went over there, and in the morning when the shop opened up, went and talked to the guy, and they said, "Oh, you gotta go talk to the body shop part. Now it's in the back." So I went in the back and I talked to the guy, and he's like, "Dude," he goes, "I got a hood that I just painted. It's sitting back here. It's ready to be installed for that truck." I'm like, "Cool. Let's make it happen here." And he's like, "Okay." And I sat there for, I don't know, hour, 2 hours, whatever it was. Sat there and nobody was working on my truck. And I asked the guy, "What's going on?" He goes, "The boss says that hood is for one of the trucks down here." I'm arguing with him because it's not anybody's truck. So there's not a driver that's assigned to that truck. Because I'm trying to argue with him, trying to get him to put the hood on this truck because you have a load on you. You know? And he goes, "He's just being stubborn." So I made some phone calls, talked to my manager, and she talked to her boss, and they called down there, and they had all these discussions. The boss is down there. Finally, it got approved. And he started working on it. I think it was like after lunch. He finally started working on it. And he had fixed the radiator and did all that earlier. But then he started working on the hood. And he was the only guy that worked in the body shop part. And I was like, "Dude, are you going to be able to get this done today?" And he was like, "I don't know, man. It's a lot of work for one guy." He goes, "I'm trying." He goes, "I'll do my best to get you out of here." And I was just kind of sitting outside the shop, and I said, "Well, I said, I'm kind of handy. I said, I can help you." He's like, "Oh," he goes, "you can't be inside the shop." He goes, "That's against the rules. If my boss caught that, he'd be upset." And the boss man kept poking in there. He kept poking his head in there, and you could tell he was not happy that I was getting that hood. He didn't want me to have that hood. He wanted it to go on one of his trucks out of their terminal. And I sat there, and he kept poking his head in like, "This is never going to get done today," and all this other stuff. And he would leave, and then the guy was wrestling around trying to get this other hood, and he had this big hoist thing. He was trying to do it, trying to get the hood placed on there, and the boss wouldn't help him and nothing else. He was trying to do it by himself. And finally he looked at me, and I was standing outside, and he goes, "All right," he goes, "I could use your help." He goes, "Come on in here, help me." And he goes, "I'm just telling you," he goes, "if the boss comes in here, you got to run. You got to get out of here." And he goes, "Otherwise we're both going to be in trouble." And I said, "No problem." So I went in there, and I was helping and stuff. And doing the best I could. And I never worked on the semis before and stuff, but I was, helping him out. I'm pretty mechanical and stuff, and we were plugging away at it. And then all of a sudden I heard a door opening from the shop, and so I just busted out, and there was like a chain link thing, and I jumped the chain link and stood outside the door. And it was boss man. He came inside, and he's like looking around. He's like, "Oh, you got it on there, huh?" It's like, "Oh yeah, it was hard, but I got it on there." And he left, and as soon as he left, I came back in, and we're bolting everything up and helping this guy and tying us all together. And just as we were getting it pretty much done, and then it was going to be bolting the headlight assemblies and putting the latches and all this stuff on, all the hardware, the guy opened the door real fast. He opened the door, and I was like, "Oh." And he looked at me, and he started yelling about it and everything, and the other guy started yelling back at him, and he's like, "I don't know why you're making it so difficult and why you won't have anybody help me. It's just your ego. And they started yelling at each other and everything else. I kind of stepped out of the shop. And he finally stormed off. And the mechanic guy, we had pretty much everything tied up. And he's like, yeah, you better stay out. He goes, I appreciate the help so much. And he stayed like an extra hour and got it done for me. That was my first day solo Swift. Thanks, car. Appreciate that. As one of my subscribers, I don't know if he's still a subscriber or not, we kind of got into a little argument. As he would probably like to say, you're asking permission when you put your blinker on. The car does not have to let you in. Oh yeah. That guy cracked me up with his comments. It's like, I am not asking permission. I am letting other drivers know of my intention. I do not have to ask permission to do a maneuver out here. So anywho, so that was my first day as a Swift truck driver. I got lots of little stories about that stuff. When I drove there, I had some very interesting things happen. But this is probably pretty long. And I'm really curious to see if this thing is recording. Oh, my other camera fell over. So I hope everyone out there is having themselves a great day, a great night as you're watching this video. And if you're not, then we certainly can do something about it. Try that again tomorrow. So we'll catch you guys later. Probably next stop, Mafia Chrome Shop. See if they're open.